In a Senate hearing, Austin and Milley discussed the defense budget. Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell said he opposes repeal, claiming that such authority bears directly on the threats we face today in Iraq and Syria from Iran-backed terrorists. The Senate is prepared to revoke the decades-old authorization for the Iraq War as soon as Wednesday, and McConnell, who is recuperating at home after a fall earlier this month, is speaking up for the first time at this time. McConnell and other Republican opponents contend that removing these war powers would portray the United States as being weak in the Middle East and would encourage Iran and other terrorist organizations. Supporters of the repeal contend that it would strengthen the current strategic alliance between Iraq and the United States. McConnell stated, "I oppose Congress sunsetting any authorizations for military force in the Middle East. When we deploy our service members in harm's way, we need to provide them with all the support and legal authorities that we can, because our terrorist enemies aren't going to stop fighting their war against us." The Republican Party is seeing a widening schism over the United States' position in the Middle East, with some Republicans mimicking the "America First" rhetoric of the late President Donald Trump to argue against foreign military engagement. This is where McConnell pushes back. Other Republicans worry that the president is given too much discretion by Congress in matters of war. The Republican Party is seeing a widening schism over the United States' position in the Middle East, with some Republicans mimicking the "America First" rhetoric of the late President Donald Trump to argue against foreign military engagement. Senator Todd Young of Indiana, the chief Republican backer of the repeal, said, "I think a lot of lessons have been learned over the last 20 years. He stated that those in favor of the proposal want to make sure that the American people can hold us accountable, rather than delegating those crucial powers to an executive branch and then bemoaning the executive branch's imprudent wisdom if things don't go well. For many members of Congress, the votes in October 2002 granting President George W. Bush broad power for the invasion were a turning point. American combat soldiers swiftly learned following the initial invasion in March 2003 that the Bush administration's claims of the existence of nuclear or chemical weapons programs were unfounded. Young pointed out that President Joe Biden, as well as previous and future presidents, had additional ability to initiate military action. However, lawmakers worry that the Iraq war powers might be applied in ways that Congress never intended. The 2002 Iraq War resolution has only seldom been referenced, including by the Trump administration to support a 2020 drone operation that killed Iranian General Qasem Soleimani. Republican senator from Maine named Susan Collins claimed that 2 decades ago, there was more respect for the president's authority in the event of an impending threat. Collins voted for the Iraq War authorization in 2002 but is now voting against it. However, she noted that, since the Iraq War, there has been more reluctance to have open-ended authorizations for the use of force. And the fact that these authorizations have been in place for so long diminishes the role of Congress in announcing war. Several Republican amendments to the bill, including several that sought to guarantee that the United States could defend soldiers and personnel against potential Iranian aggression, were rejected by the Senate on Tuesday. The recent attacks on American forces in Syria, including a drone strike last week that killed an American contractor and injured 5 soldiers and a different contractor, as well as a rocket attack that injured another service member, alarmed GOP senators who opposed the repeal. The strikes are thought to have been carried out by militants with Iranian support. The amendment, which would have required the Director of National Intelligence to determine that the repeal would not degrade the effectiveness of United States-led deterrence against Iranian aggression, was defeated 38 to 57. "Iran right now is the threat," said Alaska Senator Dan Sullivan, a Republican. Biden and his administration are among the proponents of the repeal, and they claim that it will not have an impact on how Iran will be dealt with. At a Senate hearing on Wednesday, General Milley and Austin both asserted that American troops are capable of defending themselves and responding to assaults, even in light of Article 2 of the Constitution, which grants the President the power to defend troops against attack. Austin pointed out that the United States is able to send forces to the region to conduct operations against the Islamic State group because to a separate 2001 authorization for the use of military action against al-Qaeda and other insurgents. according to the Senate measure. That would continue to exist. Austin added, "You have my promise to work with leadership and with you to continue to do that. It's always good to look at the authorities and make sure that we develop them if that's required. It's uncertain if the House will take up the bill." Despite having previously voted against it, Republican House Speaker Kevin McCarthy of California has hinted at potential support. A similar repeal was approved by the House 2 years ago with the support of 49 Republicans and Democrats. Republicans opposed to the repeal have stated that Iran has not received enough pressure from the Biden administration and that removing the current war powers won't be helpful. Iran has maintained its murderous attacks against us while the Senate has been debating an amorphous, theoretical issue like reducing American strength, McConnell claimed in his statement.